is court packing a good idea? In my opinion, it's a terrible idea for a couple of reasons. What's going on, everybody? It's Nick here, and in this video, you're going to learn everything you need to know about the Democrats' court packing plan. The Democrats' court packing plan could radically affect your rights and freedoms if it's successful as an American. If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Nick. I'm a lawyer, and on this channel, I make videos about law and current events, and I break them down for you into plain English. Now, you might have noticed that I took a little break from YouTube, and the reason is I came down with COVID-19, unfortunately. And quite frankly, I'm surprised that I made it all through 2020 without getting it, and then only to get it in March of 2021, late March into April, when we've got a vaccine and everything. So it was unfortunate, but I've recovered. I'm almost back to 100%. I'm certainly back in the office, and I plan on making more videos very soon. So make sure to hit that subscribe button below and turn the bell notification icon on so you don't miss any of my new videos on this topic and various other topics that are hot and trending right now. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into today's video. Court packing has become a very hot topic in the news lately. But what exactly does court packing mean? Well, court packing is simply the situation where the political party that is in power in Congress and the White House want to add additional seats onto the Supreme Court so that they can then fill them with justices who share their political views. They can change the political ideology of the Supreme Court by doing this. So right now there are 9 total justices, and it's been that way for a very long time. I think it was around 1869 when the Supreme Court set the 9-seat setup that we have right now. 6 of the justices, 6 of the 9, are conservative leaning, and 3 of them lean liberal. The political leanings of the Supreme Court is important because the laws that the court interprets affect our rights as everyday Americans. For example, last November, the Supreme Court blocked New York from enforcing attendance limits at religious services. Later this year, the Supreme Court will decide important cases about LGBTQ rights and religious liberties, compensation for college athletes, legal protections for software code, among other cases. Now, if the Democrats add 4 new seats to the Supreme Court, increasing the number of justices from 9 up to 13, and then President Biden fills those 4 seats with liberal justices, the liberal justices would have a 7-6 majority in the Supreme Court. This would likely result in more liberal outcomes in those cases and a more liberal interpretation of our laws. Calls from Democrats to pack the Supreme Court with liberal justices have been growing increasingly loud in recent months and over the past couple years. It all started back in 2016. Roughly 9 months before the election, Justice Scalia passed away, and the President, Obama at the time, nominated Judge Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court.
I have fulfilled my constitutional duty. I simply ask Republicans in the Senate to give him a fair hearing. If you don't, it will indicate a process for nominating and confirming judges that is beyond repair.
Now, this would have given the liberal justices at the time a 5-4 majority in the Supreme Court. Republicans, though, controlled the majority of votes in the Senate at the time. Led by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republicans refused to hold a hearing to confirm Obama's nominee to the Supreme Court.
Let's let the American people decide. Give the people a voice in filling this vacancy.
Now, McConnell said he was doing this because it was an election year and the new president should get to decide who to appoint and fill the vacant seat left by Justice Scalia.
This nomination ought to be made by the next president.
So just to put a button on this, are you ruling it out 100%?
Yes.
Now, fast forward to October of 2020. There was roughly 1 week until the 2020 presidential election that President Trump ultimately lost. Mitch McConnell does a complete 180 when he and the Republican senators rush and scramble to confirm the conservative Trump nominee Justice Amy Coney Barrett to fill the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's newly vacant seat. This gives the conservative justices a 6-3 majority in the Supreme Court, which they currently have. Democrats are understandably furious about Mitch McConnell's hypocrisy there, and they felt like the Republicans had acted unfairly.
This confirmation process is shameful. It is unprecedented. If you've ever wondered what hypocrisy looks like, this is it. There is no precedent for the shameful blockade of consideration for Judge Merrick Garland. And there is no precedent for confirming Judge Barrett just 8 days before an election. But rushing to confirm Judge Barrett has the potential of altering, perhaps forever, the way the American people view the Supreme Court and the United States Senate.
Just 8 days before the election, when tens of millions of Americans have already cast their ballots, and just 15 days before the Supreme Court will hear a case that could overturn the Affordable Care Act, Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, and their Republican buddies are shoving aside the wishes of the American people in order to steal the Supreme Court seat. They even violated the rule Mitch McConnell made up in order to keep one of President Obama's nominees off the court long before anyone was voting. No confirmations of justices in an election year. So they made up the rules, then they broke those same rules. They cheated.
Now, what's interesting here is that not all of the Democrats agree that court packing is a good idea. As a senator, President Biden didn't think court packing was a good idea. In fact, he is on record calling it a boneheaded idea.
They had the right to send to the United States Senate and the United States Congress a proposal to pack the court. It was totally within his right to do that. He violated no law. He was legalistically absolutely correct, but it was a bonehead idea. It was a terrible, terrible mistake to make, and it put in question for an entire decade the independence of the most significant body, including the Congress, in my view, the most significant body in this country, the Supreme Court of the United States of America.
Despite this fact, during his campaign for president, Biden faced mounting pressure from the Democrat power brokers and up-and-coming progressive Democrat lawmakers like AOC to support their plan to pack the Supreme Court with liberal justices and undo what the Republicans had accomplished in 2016 when they blocked Merrick Garland's nomination from President Obama. During the first presidential debate, Biden was cagey about court packing and refused to say whether he supported it or not.
Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now. Make sure you, in fact, let people know you're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question because the question is
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
Who's on your list?
Gentlemen, I think
this is so unprecedented.
We're not going to give a list.
We have ended.
Then more recently, during his ABC town hall, Biden was again asked to clarify his stance on court packing. Here is what he had to say.
I have not been a fan of court packing because I think it just generates what will happen. Whoever wins, it just keeps moving in a way that is inconsistent with what is going to be manageable.
So you're still not a fan?
Well, I'm not a fan. I didn't say it depends on how this turns out.
If they vote out before the election, you are open to expanding the court?
I'm open to considering what happens from that point on.
Now, earlier this month, President Biden issued an executive order forming a committee that will prepare a report about court packing and other proposals for reform in the Supreme Court. Biden's order gives the committee 180 days from the date of the committee's first meeting to furnish him with a report explaining the arguments for and against court packing, as well as the legality of court packing. More recently this month, Democrat Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts introduced a bill to pack the Supreme Court from 9 to 13 justices, giving Democrat-appointed justices a one-vote majority.
The Republicans stole 2 seats on the Supreme Court, and now it is up to us to repair that damage. And we do it by adding 4 seats to the court to create a 13-member Supreme Court. These 4 new seats, to be filled by President Biden, will reconstitute the United States Supreme Court. The bench will then rightly reflect the values of the majority of the American people on whose behalf they serve. We must expand the court, and we must abolish the filibuster to do it.
The lawmakers are proposing amending Section 1, Title 28 of the United States Code, which calls for, quote, a Chief Justice and 8 Associate Justices, any 6 of whom shall constitute a quorum, end quote. But just 12 hours later, Democratic Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, shot the bill down by saying that she would not bring that bill to the House floor.
Do you support Jerry Nadler's bill to expand the Supreme Court by 4 seats And would you commit to bringing that bill to the floor?
No.
Pelosi indicated that she remains open to the idea of court packing, but she would prefer to wait and see how things play out politically after we receive the report on court packing from Biden's court packing committee.
I don't know that that's a good idea or a bad idea. I think it's an idea that should be considered, and I think the president's taken the right approach to have a commission to study such a thing. It's a big step. It's not out of the question. It has been done before.
Now, Republican lawmakers have expressed strong opposition to court packing, obviously. Even many liberals and members of the Democratic Party have spoken out against court packing. As we saw earlier, Joe Biden called it a boneheaded idea. In my opinion, it seems like Joe Biden formed the court packing committee that is going to furnish its report soon to get the Democrats that have been pushing for it off his back. Now, at least two of the most influential liberal justices on the Supreme Court have said on record that court packing is a bad idea. During an interview in 2019, the late Justice Ginsburg had this to say about the idea of court packing.
9 seems to be a good number, and it's been that way for a long time. I have heard that there are some people on the Democratic side who would like to increase the number of judges. I think that was a bad idea when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt tried to pack the court. Well, if anything would make the court appear partisan, it would be that. One side saying, when we're in power, we're going to enlarge the number of judges, so we will have more people who will vote the way we want them to. So I am not at all in favor of that solution.
Then earlier this month, Justice Breyer gave a speech at Harvard in which he said in very clear and compelling terms that court packing is just not a good idea for a number of reasons.
The rule of law has weathered many threats, but it remains sturdy. I hope and expect that the court will retain its authority, but that authority, like the rule of law, depends on trust. A trust that the court is guided by legal principle, not politics. Structural alteration motivated by the perception of political influence can only feed that latter perception.
Although the number of seats on the Supreme Court has changed from time to time, the idea of expanding the court and the last presidential attempt to do so is traced back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. In 1937, FDR pushed Congress to pass a bill that would have expanded the seats on the Supreme Court from 9 to 15. The Supreme Court kept striking down FDR's New Deal legislation. FDR was outraged by this because he felt like the Supreme Court was stopping him from passing laws that he felt were needed to rescue the country from the Great Depression. The Constitution doesn't specify how many justices can serve on the Supreme Court. So George Washington just went ahead and nominated 6 Supreme Court justices in 1789, moments after Congress passed the Judiciary Act of 1789. The Senate then confirmed them all in just 2 days. So that's very different than what we're seeing, the theater that we see every time there's a nomination in the Supreme Court that we see in the Senate. It's just a circus. And so things were much simpler back in the late 1700s and 1800s in terms of confirming Supreme Court justices. Eventually, under Abraham Lincoln, the number of justices grew to 10 before Congress decided to set that number at 9 in 1869. Since then, the number of justices on the Supreme Court has remained at 9. Roosevelt wanted to increase the number of justices up to 15 because he claimed that more justices were needed to clear the backlog of cases at the time. Now, of course, FDR's true motive in doing this and wanting to pack the Supreme Court was so that he could then fill those new seats with justices of his selection who would vote in favor of his New Deal legislation when challenged to the Supreme Court and could override the justices who kept voting to strike it down. Congress ultimately refused to pass FDR's court packing bill. It was very unpopular with both parties. But FDR's court packing idea has lived on and has new life now and has been gaining popularity among many Democrats. If the Supreme Court were to, in the coming months or the coming year or two, issue a decision that really upsets the Democrats, for example, striking down Obamacare, I would not be surprised to see some of Democratic leadership like Biden, Pelosi, and Schumer suddenly jump on the bandwagon and really make a serious push to get a court packing bill through Congress. In the meantime, The mere threat of a court packing bill is seen by many, including myself, as a way to keep conservative justices from issuing a decision that really displeases the Democratic Party. So is court packing a good idea? In my opinion, it's a terrible idea for a couple of reasons. First, if the Democrats who control Congress right now use their power to pack the Supreme Court, the Republicans will do the same thing. What's stopping them from doing the exact same thing once they retake the majority in Congress? Second, and more importantly, the American court system, our legal system, is not perfect, but it's the best in the world. In third world countries around the world, disputes are settled not through a peaceful court system, but through self-help and violence. The resulting chaos and violence makes it hard to do business and hard to make a happy, peaceful life for yourself and your family. Now, in America, we don't have to settle our disputes in the streets. We don't have to resort to violence and self-help, thanks to our court system. We submit our disputes to a neutral court to decide instead, and then we obey the outcome even when it doesn't come out in our favor. Even when we don't like the outcome, we obey it because we believe, in general, the federal court system is neutral and there are checks in place to make sure that the judges are deciding cases neutrally based on historical precedent, based on similar decisions that it's made in the past. This is exactly why we give federal judges life tenure, so that they do not have to run for re-election every couple of years, and they don't have to pander to their political party leaders or sway with the political winds of the time. But packing the Supreme Court and placing term limits on justices would turn the Supreme Court into a political branch, just like the other two branches of government are. This would damage the credibility of our judicial system because people would begin to increasingly question its legitimacy and its decisions handed down by the courts, because they believe the judges are simply pushing a political agenda and trying to shape the law to satisfy their party's political agenda, rather than merely applying the law in a way that's consistent with how past courts have done so in similar cases. Now, if you take this to its logical extreme, then the Supreme Court and the lower courts in the federal system underneath it would turn into a political battleground instead of a neutral place for resolving disputes peacefully. People stop trusting the courts to resolve their disputes in a fair way, and Americans would increasingly resort to self-help and even violence to settle their disputes because they know they're not going to get a fair shake in our courts. We don't want to go down that road. So the big question now is, what will Biden's court packing committee say in their report about a court packing plan? And will Biden and Democratic lawmakers in Congress use the report as pretext for pushing a court packing bill through Congress? We should be getting a report sometime in early to mid-October. If you don't want to miss any breaking developments in this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button below and turn the bell notification icon on if you have not done so already. Also, check out my channel membership program, where you can unlock special perks, and you can also support this channel and allow me to keep making videos just like this one. Just click the link in the description below to learn more. And of course, as always, thank you for watching.